What's up, everybody? It is another Mental Man Monday live stream with your boy, Izzy F. Baby. Coming back from homecoming week, it was a lot. PVs is this weekend, but Monday was a lot for me. So didn't do it on Monday. And I'm only by myself today. And because we didn't drop an episode last week, we have nothing to recap. So we're actually going to cover 3 topics today. So it's me alone. So, as always, I won't be before you long because it's just me. But it's a few things I want to discuss today. And yeah, we're going to get into it. So just jumping right into it. Let's get into the first topic for the day. So hold on, y'all. They got stuck. Hold on. Katt Williams is for Jesus. Now, people have already been calling him a prophet and things. So we're gonna watch a clip from him on the Sherri Shepherd show, and he discusses his faith. And I'm gonna give my take on that. So let me share my screen and let's get to going.
Did you ever think that you would be like a meme that just symbolizes truth?
I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, so I want everything that comes along with that, even if it's not good. Like, this is kind of what I signed up for. So yeah. That particular interview was certainly a blessing that I was even able to be involved. But
did you ever think that you would be like a meme that just symbolizes truth?
All right, that was pretty quick and painless. But let's go into the first portions, which is what does this have to do with mental health? So for those that don't know, Katt Williams is one of my favorite comedians. People say I like controversial people, and they're probably right. But in that clip on the Sherri Shepherd show, we were able to see Katt Williams express his faith openly. In a world where people have now renounced Christ, there's actually a podcast, and I won't say his name, that I was actually following. And I recently saw a clip of him speaking on African practices and saying, oh, y'all putting all y'all faith in this Jesus stuff, but your aunties and uncles and all them told y'all about these African practices and that are demonic, but people get caught up in, well, our ancestors did it, but whatever, right? And I won't go down that route today. But what I will say is with that, I'm following him because you're not going to blatantly blaspheme the God I serve. People want to follow people because of politics and still be friends with people that make fun of their spirituality. But you'll cut off somebody over politics. I don't get that. And I'll never get it. But what I liked in this clip is when, we talk about what this have to do with mental health, he blatantly stood up for what he believed in. He, acknowledged that being openly a believer of Jesus Christ is going to get controversy. It's going to bring controversy. It's going to bring attack. It's going to bring good and bad. It's going to bring the eyes. Some people going to hate. Some people going to love it. It doesn't matter. But Katt Williams stood 10 toes, which that's not a surprise. What he always does. So we're used to that. We used to seeing Katt Williams being like, yeah, this is what it is. What is it going to be? And we need more people like that for the people who may be Christians and may be scared to stand up. We just need to continue to see more bold and radical people, but people to see people stand up for what they believe in without worrying about what somebody will say. And him even understanding that, that video, that Shannon Sharpe interview has so many different breakdowns and, how they said on the Shannon Sharpe that people said that Shannon Sharpe was publicly warned multiple times. And I said this on this live stream on the podcast before. When God wants to tell you something, He's going to tell it to you personally several times. You don't listen. He's going to send somebody several times. You don't listen. Then finally the exposure comes. But he was warned publicly. It was another one, but I know for sure about Katt Williams and Monique, and he ain't listen. So WWID, what would I do in this situation? In this situation, I guess we could just use it as an excuse to always bring God up and put God first. He could have easily just been like, I was speaking it real, I was just being myself. But for him to throw God in there when he didn't have to shows that he always trying to go push it back to God. And I know it was kind of, which is going to be one of the topics we end off with, but he made a comment about, he gives to the poor a lot. and that is a biblical requirement. I don't know if I want to say requirement, but it is biblically acknowledged by God and benefits that come from it. But I think that sometimes people will say, well, I'm going to just give to the poor and not give to my local church because they need it more. And it's much deeper than that. And I'm going to get into a story when we get to that topic. But I think sometimes people misconstrue. And me, I'm the type, I do both. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So WWJD, what would Jesus do? It's obvious. Jesus gave credit to God at all times in all ways. So for him, that's again, not saying he's Jesus, but you know, what was the most ethically and morally correct thing to do? That's what it was. On a public platform that's seen by millions of people, throw up Jesus in there. You didn't have to do it. You could have said God. And the thing is that people don't want to hear this. A lot of times when people be saying God, they don't always mean Jesus. What should men do in this situation? Men should always be bold and radical about what they believe in. Always standing for their faith. Last Mental Man Monday, I had my boy Amrock on, and he believes in God, but he really doesn't believe in the same things I believe in. And last week we covered NLE Chopper and Jonathan Majors on Den of Kings, and I gave my take to him about where I stand with Christ, and I was bold about it, and I was just saying, you know, I don't want to have another Jonathan Majors NLE Chopper moment, which even both of us agree we don't think that Jonathan was trying to be rude, and he was trying to be nasty. It came off. I could see it coming off that way, but we don't think he didn't think he meant it that way. But it's just sometimes you have to really give examples to people. And for him, in that episode, and y'all can go watch it if you want, or listen to it however you want to do it. I don't really think I gave too many examples, but I do know for a fact that I stated and I restate, I was like, you know, I don't have the luxury of questioning if God is real or the, you know, the supernatural and all that. I've had too many supernatural experiences, one of which we will discuss today, where I could never say, I don't know. I don't have that luxury. So, you know, so yeah, shout out to Katt Williams, one of the best to ever do it. All right, y'all. So the next topic today, we're going to get into entertainer, and I don't want to label him as a podcaster. I guess I could, but more so Funky Dineva, Quentin, I think that's his real name. He Stephen A has been going viral for saying some stuff. So I'm actually going to let what Stephen A Smith said about Jasmine Crockett first on, this is complimentary of the Shade Room, and then I'm going to then we're going to watch what Funky Dineva said and go from there. So let me go over here. Because it was pretty long. And then let's do it like this. All right, y'all. And remember, we are live.
Your district in Texas? Aren't you there to find a way to get chooses to express herself? I'm like, is that going to help your district in Texas? Aren't you there to find a way to get stuff done as opposed to just being an impediment to what Trump wants? How much work goes into that? I'm just going to go off about Trump, cuss him out every chance I get, say the most derogatory, incendiary things imaginable, and that's my day's work. That ain't work. Work is saying that's the man in power. I know what his agenda is. I'm not exactly in a position to stop him since the Republicans have the Senate and the House. But maybe if I'm willing to work with this man, I might get something out of it for my constituency. Because like Joe Manchin said, he's there to represent, or was there for 15 years to represent, the people of West Virginia. She's supposed to be there to represent the people of Texas. How Jasmine Crockett
population. They're saying it's we ain't even getting in on introduction because I don't effed around and got mad listening to this last story. Let me tell y'all something about that hairline of that doggone Muppet, that big nose Muppet with that hairline pushed back from here to Afghanistan. Let me tell you something. You might not say the word, and I don't work for the Shade Room, so I can say what the hell I want to say. He is and I'm going to tell you something. He's sitting over there tap dancing and being a for white folks because he want to be a white man so bad. Look at his hairline. You know how when white men go bald, they get that little table skirt around the side. They don't want to just shave it all off. He got the same thing going on, just in the format. And I'm going to take it a step further. You got so much to say about Jasmine Crockett, but your daughter ain't far off from her, because I watch how sass mouth your daughter gets on your show, and she's a sassy little firecracker too. And I'm not saying that in a negative light. I'm not saying nothing to say nothing negative about his daughter, but that is the spirit of Black women. They're oftentimes vocal. They have a lot of passion. They have a lot of emotion behind what they're saying. We ain't even getting in on introduction because I don't effed around and got mad. Stephen A. Smith, how would you feel if that sassy daughter of yours got into a position of leadership and another grown, big nose, hairline pushback from here to Zimbabwe got on a platform as big as yours and said what you had to say about somebody like Jasmine Crockett, who is using her platform to do the doggone work? Stephen A. Smith, as far as I'm concerned, you ain't even good on speaking on sports. Like LeBron said, always talking about some sports your ain't never even played. And then you want to get on here and come for this sister. I do not mind Black people having differences of opinion. We don't have to all vote the same. Black people are not all a monolith, but I question the intentionality behind some of the that comes out of Stephen A. Smith's mouth. Stephen A. Smith strikes me as one of those Black people. I'm gonna be very honest. Stephen A. Smith don't believe half the that come out of his mouth. What Stephen A. Smith believes is that nice paycheck that he gets, and the more that he panders and tap dance, what they're saying is, Stephen A. Smith, how would you feel if that's a certain demographic of the population, the bigger that check gets? And he is one of those that said, forget everybody else, I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna get mine. And every time he gets off stage, them good old white folks pat him on the back, and it makes him feel good. The same way they do Tucker Carlson, Bill O'Reilly, and Megyn Kelly, all of which don't believe half of that that come out their mouth. The only difference between them and Stephen A. Smith is that when they get through pandering to those crazies, they're going to still have a community to go to. Stephen A. Smith, when these white folks is done with your and when they chew you up and spit you out, you ain't gonna have nowhere else to land, my brother, because we not gonna have you. You and whatever little piece of hair you got left. Now, what y'all saying? What's going on, Tom? What's going on, Zach? Hey,
what's up? What's up, Funky?
That's what I'm talking about. Come in here hot, baby. Yeah.
Wow. All right, now it started off, I felt one way, but towards the end, I felt a different way. So watch this. All right, so what does this have to do with mental health? This is the study of how we act, think, and feel. Now, there are times when we will have to publicly rebuke somebody, right? There will be times we have to publicly stand up and speak out against people. There are times. And let's start with Stephen A. because we watched that first. Listen to that first. Stephen A., he goes hard. Stephen A., I've said this before in this entertainment, in the podcast space, in the reality space, in the YouTube space. These people are characters. They're an amplified version of themselves. They take one part of themselves, and I do believe they amplify it. That's why when Funky was just like, I don't believe half the stuff that Stephen A. say, that he don't believe half stuff he say. He just say stuff basically in layman's terms, and he say stuff really just to stay relevant and go viral. If he does believe what he says, I respect it. I respect his opinion. I don't agree with everything Stephen A. say, but I respect his opinion. But and it's for anybody, if he is saying things just to go viral, I have to question your morality as a person. Because if you do anything just to stay relevant, and that's what a lot of these people are doing, they'll do and say anything just for the clout. Now, so if that's under the decision making, if he decided to do that, and if he can sleep at night knowing, I'm making this decision, it's paying my bills, I got to be a little quiet and I got to speak out against maybe what I believe in just for the sake of a check, it is what it is, because I'm sure that another paid him well. Now with Funky, again, he did have I'm gonna just say unplanned roast session. That's why I was like, he started going. I'm like, at first I was gonna say Funky was ruining his message with the roast session. Well, it's funny, but he was ruining his roast session. Then he brought it back home towards the end. He had to end it with a roast, but I mean, I'm not gonna lie, he did kind of have some good points. He did, he did make the comment about, I didn't know where he was going. We brought up Stephen A.'s daughter, so I was like, well, where are you going with this? Because that's just some people's like, don't even put my daughter's name in your mouth, right? So kids, whatever, kids off limits. But he was just saying that she's very, sassy and strong, just like Jasmine Crockett is. So how would you feel if somebody did her like that? You know, I think that Funky, you know, this is what he get paid to do. So of course he cool with doing that. Let me know in the comments what y'all think. How really about Stephen A. Smith and how Funky responded. But sometimes I'm not gonna lie, when I saw Funky Dineva say something about Stephen A., I'm like, oh, here we go. But then it's like, that's why you can't judge a book by its cover. I actually kind of agree. You know, I don't necessarily agree with what they was like. Stephen A. like, I get what he was saying, and I like how Funky did say, you know, we Black, we don't always have to vote the same and agree the same. But I think it goes back to what we said before on this podcast in one of the episodes where, shout out to EJ, it was her years ago, season 5, when we talked about, you know, somebody, basically Black people shouldn't be shaming other Black people publicly. I'm on the fence about that only because it depends on what they're saying. In this situation, the political stuff is kind of like, but similar to that podcast I unfollowed earlier. I haven't said his name, but in the same breath, I cannot publicly support nobody that does that. So I'm going to be messy and say the name, but I just can't support that. So let's go to the next segment, which is WWID. What would I do in this situation? Now, both sides of the ball. Stephen A. gave his opinion. I hope he believes it. If he don't believe it, I got to look at you sideways. But if you believe what you're saying, then hey, cool. You got to live with that, but stand on it. Anything I say, I'm going to stand on. And if I realize later I was wrong or I was corrected, I will publicly do that. Funky, believe everything he said. And I'm not going to lie, and I had straight thought that about Stephen A. Smith. I said, I don't think he believe everything he be saying. I think he just saying stuff for the clout. I did feel that way. And like I said, there's people in here. Come on, y'all. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. Do you believe what Stephen A. was saying? But like I said, Funky, I think that it was funny. Funky had great points. And I'm going to roast him general too. But there is a time and a place. And I feel like the Jones, although they was funny, I don't think that was the right place because sometimes that kind of takes away from your message. Because then it's like, come on. You know, it's like, it's a time and a place. But I mean, it was funny. And you had a good message. And it didn't bother me or throw me off. But it could throw most people off when you start joning. It's like, come on. You turning this, it's like you're turning this personal. And sometimes you have to rebuke somebody. But I don't feel that you have to go off of with personal, with how you feel. It's hard to, it's a slippery slope. But it just kind of takes away from the overall message once you start joining. WWJD, what would Jesus do? Jesus was bold. If Jesus was going viral today, people would be doing what Funky Dineva did and comment on what he said publicly, video-wise, and with all those clips. But in the same breath, if Funky from the other stance, Funky Dineva, Jesus rebuking the Pharisees publicly, he wouldn't have roasted them. But now, just because you got offended don't mean you was being roasted, because that's a thing too. Because sometimes you could just be living in offense. But then there's also a difference when somebody's trying to offend somebody, right? But in this case, there are times when you publicly rebuke somebody. And, you know, rebuke is like a strong turning away from something. You know, we've seen it many times with many different things. And we've seen it with the church people. We're about to get in that in a minute. We've seen it in situations like this where, you know, you standing up for what you believe in and calling out your brother saying this is not right. But like I said, the message got somewhat diluted because of how it was done. You get what I'm saying? And it don't help it was the Shade Room either, because, you know, the Shade Room has been, you know, some mess. But I will give them a shout out, though, with the Shade Room. Believe it or not, I do give a shout out to them because I have seen them have moments with the Holy Girls. It's these female rappers that are Christian rappers, and they was on there, I think, talking about like dating and stuff or something. And I know one of them is married. I don't know if the other one is, but I keep telling y'all, we're going to see many professing Christians on these secular platforms, and it's gonna be many people that's going to critique that and say that that's not right. But there's a reason God is doing that. You're going to see a lot more of that, so be prepared for that. You heard it here probably first. WSMD, what should men do? From Stephen A.'s point of view, whatever you speak on publicly, I just say that you believe in it. Don't speak on something publicly just for money. And like I said, when Funky, I didn't even say it. I ain't gonna lie, I was thinking, I'm like, sometimes Stephen, I think he say stuff to you know, I'm not gonna say tap dance for the, but I do believe he does it for the check. And he might just kind of, you know, I need that money, and what's gonna keep me in the public eye, you know. And then from the other aspect with Funky, if you keep joning and keep rebuking, but you don't mix them together, because then, like I said, it throws off the rebuke, because it's hard to listen to what you're saying when you're trying to challenge or correct or call someone out, and you start talking about them, because then, like I said, now it looks personal. You feel what I'm saying? Talking about the hairline and stuff. And, you know, again, I can't say it wasn't funny. Funky Dineva is funny, but so again, if that's what you want to do with somebody, y'all, if that's what I do, not gonna joan on them. And if I do, call me out. I'm not gonna call them out and joan on them, because you're trying to it's like you're trying to roast at the same time. It's like, taking away from the message. You're taking away from the message. All right, y'all, let's get into the final topic for today, which goes into the church. And this is a clip of Marvin Winans, and apparently he's going viral for instructing churchgoers how to give their donations. I actually have a lot to say about this, so it's been a great episode so far. Let me share my screen. Let's get into the final topic for today. Shout out to the people that's been consistent, because some of y'all been consistent for several minutes now, so clearly you like what you hear. All right, and make sure y'all like, rate, and subscribe if you are on YouTube.
Do this a couple of ways. Those that have the 1,000 plus 1, that means you're coming with your 1,000 that you're giving, plus you've asked someone else to give. Now, you don't have to stop at 1,000, and we're going to deal. So in other words, if you say, Pastor Winans, I'm coming with my 1,000 plus another 3,000, then you'll say that. You understand? And if you didn't get the plus 1, but you maybe came with $250, you're going to come say that this is my 1,000 plus 250. You with me? And we're going to go all the way down. So I need you, in order for this to work, I need you to come when you're called with the offering that you're bringing. We're going to do this a couple of ways.
I, Roberta McCoy, given faith and stand in unity with the vision of perfecting church of sowing this seed of $1,000 plus $235 and receiving the blessings to come to all that participated.
Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
I, Roberta McCoy, given faith and stand in unity with the.
I'll just set this here. Here's the full content. I wonder if those who cut it will play this version. I wonder who cut it up in the first place and what was the motive. What I put out there is for those who want to see the full truth. Organization raise money all the time. There's nothing wrong with the church taking care of its own. Even though he condemned me to hell for being honorary PBS, he's still my mentor, and I can protect him with putting the whole thing out for the truth. I'm still going to do it. The church is not perfect, but overall still mine. Those of you that don't mind, like and share this. And he says,
vision of perfecting church of sowing this seed of 1,000.
All right, so let's get to talking about the final topic for today. So what does this have to do with mental health? The study of how we act, think, and feel, right? So anytime we think of the church, right? And, you know, many people think the church is a scam as it is. And there are a lot of false churches out there and false prophets and things. We know this. There are times when the Bible talks about giving. And it does talk about giving your first to God. And some people may say, well, I'd rather give to the poor. You know, I know Psalm 41 and something, I know it talks about when you give to the poor, the Lord will remember you in times of trouble. And we have to also know that times of trouble aren't always financial. And there's another one where your alms have come up to the Lord and given to the poor. So the thing is, and it's the verse talk about what happens when you do give to your, he send rain to the seed and the 10% and all that good stuff, right? So some people think like, we've been taught and trained to give to the church, and you should. a church that is good ground. Now I'm gonna get into that in a minute. So in the video, we going off that and him asking, telling y'all to give this much and theirs is this much. And she said, this is how much I'm gonna give. And he said, well, that's what you wasn't asked to do that. You was asked to give this much. That response, it wasn't the best. Everyone's not perfect, but I probably felt the way. Now let's jump to the next segment, and I get what he's saying, but in the same breath, let me just get to the next part, which is WWID. What would I do in the situation? So now, personal testimony. Watch this. I go to a church that's good ground. How do you know it's good ground? You can tell by the fruit. You know what I'm saying? You can tell by what's going on in the church. You can tell by, has there any scandals at that church? Are the people living like they're supposed to? Do they have a double life? Do you see, just things that, And there have been times I've given to my church and I've seen it come back, in some cases, instantly. There was a man at church, and he's a friend of the church. He came, this was a few months ago now. And y'all know I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I did not have my rent. And basically, this man came to the church. And again, he talked about how God has broken him out of poverty and delivered him from $46,000 worth of debt and $56,000 worth of debt. He said, y'all, the Lord has told me, he said, give $200. Who want to help sow $200? Who want to sow $200 in this? So at the time, I literally only had $170. So when he said $200, I said, I know he ain't talking to me. So then he said, I just heard the Lord say, give what you can closest to it. I said, okay, he got me. I said, well, I'm going to give 100. That's half of it. And I'm going to just go from there. This was Sunday. Rent was due Thursday. Wednesday, I get a phone call. So as y'all know, if you keep it with the vlogs, and I went to Podfest in January, and I met this lady, and she was really interested in my ghostwriting business, all that good stuff. So she calls me Wednesday and say, I just was thinking about you, and there's somebody who I really want you to meet. I really think that y'all could have a good conversation, and I really believe that y'all could do something together because he needs things and you have services. Didn't think nothing of it because, you hear stuff like that all the time. So she ended up calling me the next day with the man, and me and him ended up talking, and he's like, yeah, I'm looking for this, this, and this. So I went down a whole list of things that he needed. And in the conversation, he ended up telling me how much that he had somebody do one thing for him, and he paid her a good penny to do this one thing, and she didn't do it. So basically, she got that much money from him for like 6 months and didn't do it, and for like 6 months, and she didn't do that job. So I asked him how much he paid, and he told me. I said, well, how about for the next 3 months of the trial run, you pay me that, and then we'll see, if you like it, cool, and we decide not to do it. He was like, well, let's do it. He said, well, when can you start? I said, I can start right now. He said, okay, do you take Apple Pay? I said, yeah. He sent the money that day, and it was more than enough for my rent. And on top of that, he's a consistent client now. I say all that to say we do have bad examples in the church. We do have bad examples of people taking money, and it's not people sowing these thousands and hundreds of dollars and not seeing the harvest. But I'm telling you, when you are being obedient, you will see a harvest, and you have to give it to a good church ground. So a lot of these churches aren't good ground. I'll tell you that now. It's a lot of corruption. But I can say without a shadow of a doubt, my church is not. So shout out to Christ Tabernacle in Houston, Texas. WWJD, what would Jesus do? Jesus gave all the time. Jesus gave all the time. But a lot of these churches have a Pharisee spirit. And could he have been joking? Possibly. But even if he was, you still don't play like that, especially with money and people giving. And you heard her say, well, I'm going to try to get the other $800. And he was just kind of like, yeah, okay. And he could have been a good dry joke, but that wasn't right. So again, if he comes out and publicly apologizes, or, and I'm sure that maybe there's another context we're missing, but that's just not, you can't. What should men do in this situation? So I believe that we should give to the church 100%, give to the poor as well, give to both. Don't pick one or the other, do both. But I'm telling you from experience, from that story alone, mind you, I told God on Sunday, I'm going to trust you. I don't know how this is going to happen. And by Thursday that week, that situation happened. The literal day rent was due. You can't make this stuff up. Because somebody would have said you should have just kept your money, but that I was still already didn't have the rent no way. So it's like keeping that little $100 to myself wasn't gonna do nothing. You might as well give it to God. Like, look, I trust you with it. He multiplies. It says that. Isaiah 30:23, he sent rains to the sea. So I just had to keep speaking Bible verses and just trusting. That's all I could do. Faith is the currency of the kingdom. And even the one comment about what was I about to say? Someone was about to say. I forgot that fast. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. All right, y'all. Thank you for the Mental Man Monday live stream on the Tuesday. Next week, we're going to be on a Monday. And next week's episode centers around how to raise your self-esteem as a man with my guy who's been on the live stream. And now he has his own episode, Paul Sweatpants. He also explains why that's his name. I laughed. And he's a vlogger and YouTuber. So you'll be able to hear from him. And we're going to have a great time. So that's all, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in to this live stream. I love us for real. Well, I said it too early. But PSA, signing out. Always remember, keep your head up like your neck hurt. Remember who you are. Make it mind up. Don't let it make you. And remember, as always, I love us for real.